absent.
Okay. Thank you.
I'd like to call this meeting to order. Roll call, Jerry?
Sure. Trustee Benton?
Here.
Trustee Berg?
Here.
Trustee Jacoby?
Here.
Trustee Metz-Schilders?
Here.
Trustee Oppenheim?
Here.
Trustee Seiden is absent, and Mayor Shapiro is absent, but we do have a quorum.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. In the absence of Mayor Shapiro, I would like a motion to elect a presiding officer for the meeting.
So moved.
I think you were motioning that Mary be.
I am. Better take
Second.
a chair.
I second Mary as Mayor Pro Tem.
Second. Thank you, Rebecca. Any more discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thanks.
Aye.
We didn't rehearse this part. Technology.
Right.
Not doing it. Come on. Yay. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for attending tonight. It's good to see everyone. Our first order of business tonight, since we've gotten through the Pledge of Allegiance, we have a proclamation that I'd like to read in honor of Black History Month, which is February every year. Whereas all residents deserve to be treated with dignity, respect, compassion, and justice, regardless of gender, age, race, religion, economic status, sexual orientation, or physical, mental, or sensory ability. And whereas the Village of Deerfield supports the rights of every individual to experience equality of treatment and values our diverse population of residents, businesses, and visitors, recognizing that this diversity is one of this community's greatest strengths. And whereas February is annually celebrated as National Black History Month and recognizes the birthdays of Frederick Douglass and Abraham Lincoln, the observance of Black History Month calls our attention to the continued need to battle racism and build a society that lives up to its democratic ideals. And whereas individuals are encouraged to learn about the African American experience both in Deerfield and in the rest of the United States, and to celebrate this month by recognizing the contributions that African American individuals have made to our society. Resources can be found at blackhistorymonth.gov. Now, therefore, I, Mary Oppenheim, representing Daniel C. Shapiro, Mayor of the Village of Deerfield, Illinois, do hereby proclaim February 2024 as National Black History Month and call upon all people of Deerfield, Illinois to honor and celebrate the history and contributions of African Americans in our community, our state, and our nation. Proclaimed this 5th day of February 2024. Do I have a motion to approve this proclamation?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. We will, there's no one here specifically to receive this tonight, but we will certainly sign this and pass it on to the relevant people. Thank you. Okay. Next order of business, the minutes of our previous meeting. Do I have a motion to approve?
Move approval.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Treasurer's report. Eric. Always the highlight of the meeting.
It's called the highlight report.
I'm glad to hear it.
We're teasing you.
This is the December 2023 Treasurer's Report. It represents the unaudited results of 2023. The amounts tonight are subject to audit as well as year-end adjustments. Those adjustments will be mostly, am I not on here?
Technical Talked about that earlier.
It's probably me. I'm a jinx.
Working. Oh, there we go.
Much better.
Want me to start over or just go from? I'll just go. Okay. The adjustments are largely for expenditures that occur early in 2024 but relate back to 2023. There's also adjustments to make sure that revenues match the period in which they were earned. And finally, some allocation adjustments between expenditure accounts to clean things up throughout the year. Pretty good snapshot of what we have so far, but definitely more to come before the numbers are finalized. The annual net sales tax increased from the prior 2 years. That's due largely to higher costs of goods, a few new businesses in town, as well as internet receipts that we started collecting a couple years ago. Gross sales tax did decrease from the prior year, but that's due to economic incentive activity, which, as you know, also has a large expenditure that comes out of the finance department. Almost all the other major revenue sources exceeded the budgeted amounts. Most notably was interest income, which came in about $2.3 million. For comparison, last year was about $870,000. So
Wow.
really nice pickup for us in 2023. The rates, I think, are probably going to drop in 2024, but we'll capture it while we can. Notable expenditures in December include construction and engineering costs. We did the budgeted transfer to the 2011B sinking fund. We made the police pension contribution. There was an allocation of leaf season costs to the refuse fund. We bought some equipment for the boardroom here, trailer-mounted leaf vacuum, and December also had 3 payrolls as opposed to the normal 2 that fall each month. Twice a year we get 3 payrolls in a month. So those are the highlights, but happy to answer any questions there may be.
Question for Eric?
No.
I know we never ask our members who are attending remotely, but I'm going to do that now. Do you have any questions, Larry?
No.
Just making sure you know we're listening to see if you're listening.
Man, a few words.
So, thank you,
Thank
Eric.
you.
All right, bills and payroll. Any questions? Can I get a motion to approve these?
Move approval.
Second. Okay, it's been approved and seconded. You want to take a roll call, Jerry?
Sure. Trustee Benton?
Yes.
Trustee Berg?
Yes.
Trustee Jacoby?
Yes.
Trustee Metz-Childers?
Yes.
And Trustee Oppenheim?
Yes.
Motion
Okay.
passes.
Motion passes. Thank you. This is the time of the meeting where we have public comment. I have not been given a sheet that anybody signed in for public comment on any non-agenda item. If anybody would like to ask us anything or tell us anything or share anything with us now, this would be the time. No takers? Okay, thank you. You will have an opportunity if you want to comment on an agenda item later. You can always speak up. So we'll move on to reports then. The first is 24-13, consideration and action on the report and recommendation of the Plan Commission on a request for a special use to permit 60,000 square feet of additional general medical dental office space in the 707 Lake Cook Road office building and an exception to the parking requirements. Ken?
I'm going to hand this off to Andrew since he's going to be up here for the next several minutes. Might as well just get him started with this one.
Thank you. The Plan Commission held a public hearing on January 11th and is recommending approval to amend the special use to permit 60,000 square feet of additional medical dental office space for the 707 Lake Cook Road building and a parking exception with the condition that any single user over 25,000 square feet obtain a special use permit. The conditions on that recommendation are consistent with the text amendments we will be discussing in the following agenda items. And the petitioner is also present here this evening, and this amends the original special use ordinance from 2010, which granted 20,000 square feet of medical and dental. So the whole 80,000 square foot building, the 3-story building, could now be used as medical and dental with those conditions. The recommendation was approved unanimously by the Plan Commissioner, and as I stated, the petitioner is also here this evening to answer questions.
Thank you, Andrew. Are there any questions from my comments from the other trustees? I just have one small question, and I know we're going to be coming back to this number several times tonight, talking about 25,000 square feet of anything to get a special use. Can I just, out of curiosity, why we settled on 25,000 square feet, and just to give those of us who are not plugged into this, can you give me an example of a facility that we have is about 25,000 square feet in town? I know it mentioned the medical facility that used to be Borders. Is that 25,000 square feet? Is that what we're talking?
There at the corner of Lake Cook and Waukegan. That's probably
North
pretty
Shore?
close. I think,
Okay.
Jeff, do you know that?
So that's the amount of area we're talking about, Jeff. I'm just curious. I don't want
You're
to
talking about
prolong
it's
this.
about a half acre.
Okay.
So half acre of square
Right.
footage.
I think, Art Van was over 30. I mean, it's a larger space, but
I'm just curious as to why we settled on that as our
We looked at North Shore, and then we also looked at Northwestern. I think the first one was about 25,000 square feet, and the other one was about 20,000 square feet.
Okay.
So that's what we were using to come up with 25,000 square feet.
Okay, thank you. Just curious. Thank you. Are there any public comments on this? Anyone else want to speak to it? In that case, I would entertain a motion to approve or deny the report and direct the village attorney to prepare an ordinance.
Second.
You want to take a roll call vote, Jerry?
Trustee Berg,
Yes.
Trustee Jacoby,
Yes.
Trustee Metz-Childers.
Yes.
Trustee Oppenheim.
Yes.
Trustee Benton.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Okay. So
May I
this.
just say one word a second?
Sure.
That I'm Rick Strusner, one of the owners
Yes.
of the property that you just approved, and I want to thank you. But I want to thank the staff, the hard work that they did in working with me to get me to this point. So I appreciate it all.
Well, we appreciate the staff too, because they spelled this out very clearly for us.
Yes.
So we do understand what your situation is and why you made this request, and they made it sound very clear and very easy for us to agree to.
Well,
So
thank you.
we share your thanks. So great. Good luck. I hope you find the tenants you're looking for.
And we might add that with a unanimous vote, you convinced us and you convinced the commission, which convinced us. And that's always important.
And we'll have the ordinance at the next meeting.
Yes.
Thank you.
So that's our schedule. We'll move ahead. All right, our next report, we have a number of them. You're going to speak to them all together, Andrew?
I can. I have a PowerPoint slide that
Okay.
some are related to each other, so
Okay.
it kind of flows.
I think that's a great idea. Okay, the reports are 24-14, which is consideration and action on the Plan Commission recommendation for text amendments to the I-2 Limited Industrial District and Draft Ordinance. 24-15, which is consideration and action on the Plan Commission recommendation for text amendments to the I-1 Office Research and Restricted District and the new C4 Entertainment and Limited Retail Business District, and a draft ordinance for that. The next is 24-16, also consideration and action on a Plan Commission recommendation for a text amendment to the zoning ordinance to require planned unit development approval of developments that are 2 acres or more, and a draft ordinance for that. The next is 24-17, which is consideration and action on the Plan Commission recommendations for text amendments to the zoning ordinance for sports recreational courts regulations, a draft ordinance that goes along with that. And the last is 24-18, consideration and action on the Plan Commission recommendation for text amendments to the zoning ordinance for construction and demolition signs and for drive-through menu boards, and a draft ordinance that goes along with that. And as I understand it, all of these reports and recommendations come to us from the Plan Commission on unanimous votes. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Andrew,
Thank you.
take it away.
Tonight, Plan Commission proposing text amendments to the zoning ordinance around 7 different topic areas, some of which are related to each other. You will hear about the proposed changes for the I-1, I-2, C4 zoning districts, planned unit development regulations, sign regulations, and sport court regulations. Staff worked closely with the village attorney on preparation of the draft ordinances that were included in your distribution. The Plan Commission held their public hearing on January 11th and approved the recommendations unanimously. Chairperson Bromberg and Commissioner Goldstone from the Plan Commission are also present here this evening. I'll plan to provide a high-level overview of each of the concepts and then show accompanying PowerPoint slides depending on how much detail we want to get into for each of these topics. I suspect we'll move through some of these concepts faster than others. Some may require more discussion, and it may be helpful to pull up the exact language in the ordinances. So the first one is the I-2 regulations. This is probably the most comprehensive of the changes here, and is connected to changes we'll see for the I-1 and C4 as well. So the high-level overview for the I-2 district is we're offering a new definition for warehouse and distribution facilities. This definition clarifies that motor freight terminals and logistics centers are prohibited. So they're currently prohibited, but this just makes that even clearer. This is accomplished by offering the strong definition and will offer some distinctions for what the motor freight terminals are. Additionally, here the language notes that permitted uses cannot be over 25,000 square feet. We also list out specifically that uses with on-site retail are limited to 10%, and that would be a special use if you have on-site retail. We added a few new special uses for data center and life science for the I-2 district, and noted that businesses that operate overnight are also a special use. And then we added language that warehouse and distribution facilities over 50,000 square feet will require a traffic plan. So that's distinctly different than the traffic study, but the traffic plan can be reviewed and amended by staff on an annual basis. And then we amended the district's performance standards. We're offering new language regarding minimizing noise, vibration, smoke, odor, and some of the other performance standards that are listed in this portion of the zoning ordinance. The proposed language you will see multiple times tonight. We're trying to be consistent and carry that through to the other zoning districts. And so essentially that will eliminate the absolutes language that is currently written in the zoning districts, performance standards. That's the overview of the I-2, but I'll show just briefly maybe a couple slides. So here is the text for the permitted uses that basically is saying that over 25,000 square feet would trigger a special use, and you see that if you have on-site retail sales, that would also trigger a special use. Here's a portion that shows the overnight businesses. If you operate between the hours of 11 p.m. and 5 a.m., you would be triggering a special use. We do have exceptions there for custodial, security, maintenance, and office operations that may occur in the evening hours. That's not the principal use of your business. The performance standards, a lot of text here, but what you'll see is there's minimal, the language is minimal perceptible noise, minimal glare, minimal vibration, those types of things, opposed to none or no, which was the previous language. And we think that's really an enforcement, a better tool for us to actually enforce the ordinance, and we work closely with the village attorney on that particular recommendation. Did you want to add anything to that, Ben?
So, in the past, we've had language in our code that says no noise, or no, and so what does that mean? And, if the car door closes and somebody can hear it from the property line, is that a violation of the code? And it seems that it gets to a practicality problem, and also one that sets performance standards that are largely unenforceable, or at least very difficult to enforce. So we want to make the expectations clear. Now, that said, with this minimal perceptible noise language, or minimal vibration and so forth, there is still wide discretion that I think that this body has if somebody comes forth with a special use, for example, that is going to cause problems. And it is not meant to say that somebody, and then I'll make it clear for the record, it is not meant to say that you can have a business that is overly loud, or creates, a significant amount of glare from their lights. But it's one in which, just because you see a light bulb in the distance doesn't mean that it is a violation of our code. So I think it's a good balance, and cleans up an area that I think had some ambiguity before.
There's also language farther along somewhere, I believe, reading in here that referred to these kinds of things becoming a nuisance for neighboring properties. I mean, we're saying why it should be minimal, which sort of underpins.
And we have
what
throughout
we're
our
talking
code,
about.
we have nuisance provisions that, and if somebody was operating in a manner that caused a nuisance, there are remedies and ways that we can prevent that from happening. So again, the intent is not to change our practices. Our intent is to make the code a little less ambiguous and create a mechanism that, a standard that is more practical, both from the enforcement perspective as well as giving property owners and neighbors an expectation of what is allowed. So it's looks like a significant change. It's really not meant to be. It's just cleaning up some language.
From a legal standpoint, how do you measure minimal?
Well, it depends which item that we're talking about. So first of all, from a performance standard, when you are adopting a special use, you can look at what is the evidence before you in terms of foot candles. If you're talking about glare, if you're talking about noise, you can look at decibel levels, and it depends obviously where you're standing from. I think the idea is not to cause disturbances and nuisances on other properties, and at the same time recognizing that yes, a car door may close, you may be able to hear it. That's not the type of sound that we're talking about, and ultimately, like any provision in our code, it would, it's up to the Director of Community Development to render an interpretation of the code. So if, for example, we had a property today and there was a complaint and we had to interpret our code, an opinion would be granted, would be issued by the Community Development Director, and then under our zoning code, somebody could challenge that to the BZA if they felt that was unreasonable and the wrong interpretation. And we have mechanisms already in place to be able to handle it.
I had one other question, Andrew. When we talk about a traffic plan, and it is different than a traffic study, we know that. Who devises the traffic plan? This would be the business?
Yes. So this is the section I got to pull up here on the screen for this. So a warehouse and distribution facility over 50,000 square feet. It's already a special use, but in addition to that, and there's other triggers here. If you have 5 or more loading docks, any cross-docking at all, then you've triggered this condition and you need to submit the traffic plan. So the business, the petitioner, would submit that to us and would submit that as part of the special use process. The difference here is the petitioner is going to maybe offer a route, like a truck route of how they're going to access this I-2 zoning district. And so they may take Waukegan Road to Cates Road to a State Drive, something like that, to access one of their properties. That may be fine. We may accept that as the traffic plan, but this allows staff to review that annually and then modify and amend it. So if for whatever reason that was not the correct route, because maybe you had to take a left turn along the way and we decided that wasn't appropriate and you should only take right turns to access your property, then as part of their already approved special use, we could go back to them and say, we need a new traffic plan, and we would have that deliberation, but we are able to modify that and ultimately dictate to them that you need to take maybe Waukegan to Lake Cook Road to turn right onto Cates to get back to a State Drive. So you're taking all right turns. That's just an example of what a new tool that staff would have to dictate how trucks, for instance, enter and exit a specific property.
That's great. But I just want to clarify that we're not requiring the businesses to bring in an outside entity or a professional traffic engineer to do this. And also that the traffic plan can be amended by the village with the village's deliberations based on police department information, traffic issues, parking issues that we specify. We feel there's a problem, so you need to amend this.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
And I think it helps when you think about a traffic study, which often is submitted with a zoning application. It merely provides a projection of, usually it's the amount of traffic that it may come and go from a property, but it's not prescriptive, and it's not proposing anything prescriptive of how to manage that traffic.
Right.
So if it says it will produce 25 cars an hour, That's all it does. So this is a much more of the idea is a governing document, so that way the concerns that sometimes we hear from with an application about where trucks may go, we can make sure that it's done in a responsible manner and revisit it, to make sure that it's the most efficient in preventing a nuisance and traffic and all the safety issues. So.
And it gives us control.
Yep, and an annual basis, to make those changes if things change throughout the course of that business operation.
Thank you.
Okay, there were a couple strike-throughs here that were essentially superfluous information that is already addressed as part of the special use application. And then we have the definition, which just really makes it clear that a warehouse and distribution facility is not a motor freight terminal, a logistics center, a fulfillment center, those type of uses. So makes that very clear. That's a summary of the I-2 changes, which were the most robust.
Okay, so do you want to go through this whole thing? Do you
I'm
want us
happy
to
to.
vote on the first one first, or how should we
I'm happy
handle
to
this?
continue through. I think it just might flow easier because, like, for instance, the I-1 here, this is consistent with what we just granted, what the board had just granted for 707 Lake Cook Road.
Okay.
So this amends uses to allow for medical and dental offices up to 25,000 square feet to be permitted uses. We think that will help to fill vacancies. We also here address the I-1 district performance standards to eliminate that absolute language. We use minimal instead of none or no. And then we amend the parking requirements for medical and dental to reduce that parking ratio to be consistent with a more common standard in Article 8 of the zoning ordinance, which is for 4 spaces per 1,000 instead of the currently required 5.6 spaces per 1,000, which is identical to the 707 report and recommendation that you had just considered. As far as the C4 zoning district, which is our newest zoning district on Lake Cook Road, the retail and entertainment district. Because we're addressing the performance standards, we figured we should be consistent and address those same here. So we're just carrying through that same language for the performance standards. So this will be the third time that you all see that. So just for consistency. And then we have planned unit development regulations. Here, we're proposing language with the intention of closing any potential loopholes to the PUD requirements by requiring that all lots 2 acres or more must be developed as a PUD. This recognizes that we are a built-out community and it's most likely to be redevelopment that we experience. It recognizes that 2 acres or more could be impactful because of us being a built-out community. As I mentioned, it closes any challenges or loopholes which staff has experienced in phone conversations over the past. We've been successful at keeping that loophole closed, but people have raised questions and tried to challenge it. So this makes it very clear and gives us the advantage to review any proposal now that's 2 acres or more as part of that PUD process so that it's not just a right that a developer could come and buy a bunch of property, particularly like, let's say, in a residential district and put together a whole bunch of lots and build a really large house that maybe doesn't fit with the character of the neighborhood. This would at least allow the village governing bodies to review that request under the PUD standards. So in practice, it's really not a change, but it kind of it tightens that up. And then we have sport court regulations. So here, the Plan Commission is taking the proactive step to regulate sport courts in residential districts by providing a definition for a sport court and establishing appropriate locations, screening, and setbacks. Right now, there's no distinction in the zoning ordinance for a sport court versus a patio, and patios have 0 setback requirements. So we think a patio and a sport court are distinctly different, and this definition and then these standards would establish that appropriate setback at 10 feet. It requires some buffering. It requires it to be in the rear yard. It limits how large that sport court could be. And its sport court use is for those occupants of the residence and their guests. It's not a public court in any way. So we haven't had this issue in a residential district yet, and we want to be ahead of it in case we do ever get a proposal for that. And we know paddle ball in someone's backyard could be a problem, and we think this is a good proactive step.
Question. We do have some sport courts
We do.
and some residences. Are we grandfathering existing sport courts into this, or
Yeah, this is
imposing the new
This is
regulation?
moving forward. This is prospective. We do have sport courts. It really hasn't been an issue for us.
in terms of people complaining?
Correct. In terms of neighbors complaining, the issue we've had, and the boards will recall, is related to lighting.
Lighting.
Mostly.
Little noise.
So yes, this is going forward, but again, we wanted to be proactive about it and require at least some setback requirements, because right now, as I said, it's a patio is what somebody's pouring in their backyard. But I think that if anybody looks at a striped basketball court in someone's backyard, you would say that's a beautiful basketball court, not that's a beautiful patio. And so now we have a definition to make that distinction.
Yeah, and for those that are existing, they'd be subject to our non-conforming use provisions of our code, just like any other zoning change. If there's a business, if there's a building or something that is there prior to a zoning change, we have provisions that govern and dictate when that they can be continued to be used subject to certain rules, certain modifications and so forth, then by trigger having to come into compliance. But if somebody had a sports court there located today, it's not as if they have tomorrow the day after you adopt it, they'd have to rip it out.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, pickleball. Yeah. Think about that 10 feet from your house, you know. Congratulations, Planning
This
Commission.
doesn't apply to temporary ice rinks or things that people kind of put up.
Ice rinks, it does include ice rinks. An ice rink would have to be in your backyard.
But it would also have to be 10 feet from the property line?
Yes.
But because it's temporary, would you need to put the screening in?
Well, you only need the screening depending on how visible it is from a neighboring property or from a street. So it's not that you have to put screening. It depends on the location that you put your temporary ice rink. So I think people could put it in a place that we could work with them and not require a permanent screening for a temporary structure. I think that would be the practical implementation of that provision.
Makes sense. Thank you.
And then we have signage. And so proposing amendments to two types of signs. First is the menu board sign. Menu board signs are commonplace now. We're proposing that they be reviewed only by the ARC and eliminate the need for a public hearing. I'll recall not that long ago, Portillo's had to come before the Plan Commission and the Village Board to hold a public hearing to actually reduce the size of the menu board, but because they were altering a menu board, they triggered that provision. So they used to be new and novel. Now everybody has them. I think we understand them better, and so we think it's appropriate, and Plan Commission thought it was appropriate to streamline the menu board approval. They only have to go to the Appearance Review Commission, and they will follow, and the approval from the Appearance Review Commission then could submit for a permit and not have to have a public hearing. And the second item related to signage is a requirement of the village. So last year, we amended the municipal code to require construction and demolition signs. And Plan Commission is recommending that we amend the zoning ordinance so that these village-required signs are not a violation of the zoning ordinance. As I mentioned, this was a new sign requirement just put in last year. So we think this brings consistency throughout our documents. And builders, for instance, could still install their own sign on the property, and it wouldn't count against the number of signs that a builder has on their own development site, for instance. So this is just really a cleanup so that the municipal code and zoning ordinance don't conflict.
Any other questions? I notice we have Al Bromberg and Jennifer Goldstone here from the Plan Commission. Would you two like to add any wisdom, comments, reaction?
Andrew's doing a great job.
No, any questions then from my colleagues? Is this all clear?
Yep.
Mm-hmm. I think this is great. That I do feel for you that you must have had quite a meeting on the 11th to go through all of these details and clean up all of this language. But I think it's going to be very useful, and it makes total sense. I think the more we can get consistency throughout our zoning codes, the better it is for everybody. So I would entertain motions to pass these each
I think
report?
I think
We
you
need
can
to
do it all at once.
Can we?
Could you? Or do
I
you want
would-
do you want individual votes?
I would do
Each one?
separate votes because
Okay.
it's not a consent agenda, so.
Okay. So then I am going to ask my colleagues, I will need a motion and a second for Report 2414, text amendments on the I-2 district. That would be the first one.
I would so move.
We have, we have a motion and a second. Jerry?
Trustee Jacoby?
Yes.
Trustee Metz-Childers?
Yes.
Trustee Oppenheim?
Yes.
Trustee Benton?
Yes.
Trustee Berg?
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, then 24-15, text amendments to the I-1 and the C4 districts. Can I have a motion?
Move approval.
Second?
All right, we have a motion and a second. Jerry?
Trustee Metz-Childers?
Yes.
Trustee Oppenheim?
Yes.
Trustee Benton?
Yes.
Trustee Berg?
Yes.
Trustee Jacoby?
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, 24-16, text amendments, PUD development approval, 2 acres or more.
Move approval.
Second?
Jerry?
Trustee Oppenheim?
Yes.
Trustee Benton?
Yes.
Trustee Berg?
Yes.
Trustee Jacoby?
Yes.
Trustee Metz-Childers?
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, then 24-17, regulation, text amendments for sports recreational courts.
Move approval.
Is there a second? Okay, we've got a motion and a second. We get a vote?
Trustee Benton?
Yes.
Trustee Berg?
Yes.
Trustee Jacoby?
Yes.
Trustee Metz-Childers?
Yes.
Trustee Oppenheim?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Then 24-18, text amendments, the zoning ordinance for construction and demolition signs and drive-through menu boards.
Move approval?
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. Jerry?
Trustee Berg?
Yes.
Trustee Jacoby?
Yes.
Trustee Metz-Childers?
Yes.
Trustee Oppenheim?
Yes.
Trustee Benton?
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, I want to thank the Plan Commission and staff and our attorney for all the hard work on this stuff, and I think it's really going to clarify things for people.
And unless I'm told otherwise, we'll put these on consent for the next meeting. And obviously, you can always pull them off if you want to further consideration or if we get comments that would suggest we need to do that. But again, great. Thank you to the team and the Planning
Yes,
Commission. Great work.
absolutely. Absolutely. All right, we'll move on then to our consent agenda.
Yeah.
What?
Sorry.
We have 2 items on the consent agenda tonight. One is a resolution authorizing a grant to Faith in Action. That's 24-20. 24-21 is a resolution appointing delegates to the Solid Waste Agency of Lake County, Illinois, SWALCO Board of Directors. The first item is one that we have discussed at length in a committee of the whole meeting, and the second is more pro forma, and we do it on a regular basis. So if I could get a motion and a second from my colleagues to pass the consent agenda.
Move approval.
Second?
Roll call.
Trustee Berg?
Yes.
Trustee Jacoby?
Yes.
Trustee Metz-Childers?
Yes.
Trustee Oppenheim?
Yes.
Trustee Benton?
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, thank you. We do not have old business to go through tonight, so we'll move to new business. And the first is a resolution authorizing an agreement with the Jocelyn Center to provide professional counseling for all employees of the village. Brian Budney from our illustrious police department is here to tell us all about that.
Yes, thank you. And the police department is asking for approval of a resolution authorizing an intergovernmental agreement between the village of Deerfield and the Jocelyn Center, formerly known as the Family Services of Lake County, to reimburse Jocelyn for behavioral counseling services. Just to note, this is a renewal. We have done that. We did this late in 2022, and this is just a renewal for that agreement. But the village utilizes the Jocelyn Center for in excess of 25 years for the crucial component of the Village Employee Assistance Program. They provide professional counseling for all employees of the village their spouses, and dependents up to 26 years old. The village recognizes the accessible behavioral health counseling services and collaborations with these services. Jocelyn has asked that the service rate be raised from $130 to $140. Thus is why we're in front of you here today. If the village does approve the pay Jocelyn for the services rendered at an hourly rate of $140 per hour for the first 12, and then the rate goes down for the following sessions if it's needed. Jocelyn will bill the village on a monthly basis, and the obligation will not exceed $14,000 during the term of the agreement. One thing we did with the Jocelyn Center this year is we worked out an agreement that will last through December of 2026. So we won't have to come in front of the board every year for this, and they agreed to that. The staff recommends approval of the resolution authorizing the agreement between the village and Jocelyn Center for future payments, not to exceed the $14,000 by December 31st of 2026.
Okay. Questions from my colleagues? You know, sir, you're our only member of the public here in the back. I have not been asking you if you have a public comment. If you do, if you would raise your hand, we'd love to hear it. Okay. Yeah, I know we've been doing this for years, and I know that some of the staff have really come to rely on this service, and I'm glad we're able to provide it for them. And the Jocelyn Center has a wonderful reputation. I know they do good work.
Yes.
So.
And we've got this center, it depends on where people live. It's kind of a thing. So if you're not close to Deerfield and Highland Park, people choose to go to different providers, which is kind of what you're seeing too. But this is a key one for all of us because people work here. They can go after work, before work, that kind of thing. So we really want to continue this relationship.
That's great. If my colleagues have no more comments, I would entertain a motion to accept the resolution.
Move approval.
Second?
Trustee Jacoby?
Yes.
Trustee Metz-Childers?
Yes.
Trustee Oppenheim?
Yes.
Trustee Benton?
Yes.
Trustee Berg?
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, thank you. Brian, I know you're going to introduce the next item as well. Resolution approving an agreement for professional therapy services with First Responders Wellness Center, LLC. And
Yes.
we've talked about this fairly recently, I believe.
Yes, this is. We talked about We Never Walk Alone. That's a different organization. This is what you just said. It's a part of our officer wellness program, which we have increased to our entire staff, where we do yearly checks with our entire staff, which consists of a 55-minute sit-down with a clinician from the First Responders Wellness Center based out of Lombard. The key component of this is all the clinicians are former first responders themselves, which helps for our first responders and our staff, our dispatchers, everybody that I'll say deals with us as first responders. They can connect really well with this organization. This, again, is a renewal. This is our third year that we are doing these checks for our entire staff that have been very well received on all occasions, the past two and moving forward. So this is, again, the department is looking to get the board's approval of a cost not to exceed $11,000 for this year's wellness checks that they are currently budgeted for the 2024 fiscal year. So the department recommends approval of the resolution authorizing the police department to enter into an agreement to provide wellness check for employees of the police department. The service will be provided by First Responders Wellness Center of Lombard. And just to note that they also have an office in Lincolnshire, which works really well for us as well.
Sure. That's great. Thank you, Brian. Any questions?
One question, well, I guess a clarification. I think on two different pages, one says not to exceed 10,000, one says not to exceed 11,000. Are those different, or are they just, are they referring to two different numbers?
I think it could be a typo.
Typo. It should be the
So it should be
11,000.
11K both
So
ways.
it's
It is 11,000.
How do you come up with the not to exceeds? Is it because you are looking at how much has been used in previous years, or are you just kind of putting a number arbitrarily and you know you'll come back and ask for more if you need
In
it?
case we hire somebody in the meantime, of when they give us a fee, and it's based on basically the employees that we have.
Yep. And then a little room.
And then a little room to grow if we hire somebody else in the meantime.
Got it. Thank you.
Yep. I apologize for the typo.
Oh,
It's okay. Any public comment? Nope. All right, then, if there are no more questions or comments, I would entertain a motion.
So moved.
second.
Okay, Jerry, we've got a motion and a second.
Trustee Metz-Childers?
Yes.
Trustee Oppenheim?
Yes.
Trustee Benton?
Yes.
Trustee Berg?
Yes.
Trustee Jacoby?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you
Thank
for
you.
both.
Thanks, Brian.
All right, we have one more resolution tonight, 2419, resolution authorizing the purchase of public works vehicles. Bob Phillips, the head
Thank you,
of
Mayor Pro
Public
Tem.
Works.
We are proposing tonight to purchase 4 trucks. The trucks we've been on the waiting list for 2 years for these trucks, and so we typically would have replaced them by now. The 4 trucks are all replacement trucks, so they're already vehicles that we have in the village fleet, all in Public Works. Each one of these trucks is outfitted during the winter with a plow, so they're all plowing type trucks. The smaller truck, the 3/4 ton truck, is typically used for cul-de-sacs, whereas the 1 ton trucks are used for main lines. They're not the super big trucks, but they're the medium size. We did budget for the purchase of the trucks, and so with that, and being on the wait list for 2 years, as you know, the prices fluctuate, and so we did have some price fluctuation. But we did get a call from Raymond Chevrolet or Raymond Auto Group recently saying that all 4 of the trucks are coming up and will be available here shortly. The 3/4 ton truck in the short term, and then the 1 ton trucks in the 2 to 3 month time frame. With that, each one of the trucks has a great trade-in price. That is one of the benefits that we have of I guess maintaining our vehicles in great condition.
Yeah.
And as well as the market is calling for used vehicles, so it calls for a good trade-in price. But each one of these trucks, so the three of these trucks are 2015 trucks. One of them is a 2017 truck. The 2017 truck, I have had conversations with Village Council about this truck in the past. It's been in the shop 23 times for recalls. So we wanted to get rid of it earlier, but we couldn't. Ben and I had multiple conversations about this, whereas a commercial vehicle doesn't qualify under the Lemon Law in Illinois. So we held on to it, but it has come due. So it's reached the time frame for replacement. And with that, we're proposing to make the purchases of truck number 600 as a 3/4 ton pickup truck, and then numbers 705, 706, and 707. Each one of them are 1 ton trucks, one of them being outfitted with spreader and other assorted winter equipment. The overall purchase is $334,527. It's $90,797 over budget. I have had a conversation with Eric Burke about the purchase and the overage, and we're proposing to take the funding for these trucks out of the VERF account, and then to appropriately begin putting money back into the VERF next year at the appropriate amount, which we think will be the appropriate amount. A budget amendment is imminent once we receive the vehicles and make the purchase.
So this budget was set 2 years ago when we first ordered the trucks. This $90,000 less.
Well,
than
we
the
did
cost.
agree to a purchase price at some point 2 years ago. Yes, and that purchase price obviously has fluctuated.
This is MSRP plus, and that's what we're told is the going rate for vehicles. This is government pricing, and so where we used to have Fords and other pieces of equipment are purchased through a consortium. Chevrolet does not participate in that consortium anymore, but there is government pricing available through certain vendors. So this does take advantage of government pricing for Chevrolet trucks.
So this is the lowest price, basically, we're going to get
Yes.
on a Chevrolet truck.
But it is a non-bid, and it's government pricing.
And one of our concerns, right, is if we don't take advantage of this, we're going to be 2 more years.
Mhm.
And now trucks are going to be, instead of 7 and 9 years old, they're going to be 11 and 9, and just the breakdowns. And, I think the board has talked about this often enough. You've got to take advantage of the opportunities when you have access.
Does the price that we're paying for the trucks, does that include the modifications for snowplows and spreaders and all the other things?
It includes everything. Yeah, it's the whole kit and caboodle. But Kent is right. We could probably extend the life of these vehicles 2 more years, 11 years, 13 years. That's really getting up there for vehicles in our fleet. They aren't starting to rust out just yet because we've really kept them clean and maintained them well. But also, we did have 1 break in axle this year. So these things are starting to go on. They're starting to get expensive.
Well, we can't take the chance on not being able to plow. It just, bottom line.
That's right.
So, thank you, Bob. Do my colleagues have any other questions?
No.
Public comment? Okay, what I want to do is take these individually, if we could. So we'll need a motion for each truck, okay? If we could start with a resolution approving the purchase of the 3/4-ton truck, it's fleet number 600. Could I get a motion and a second for that?
Move approval.
Second?
Okay, Jerry?
Trustee Metz-Childers?
Yes.
Trustee Oppenheim?
Yes.
Trustee Benton?
Yes.
Trustee Berg?
Yes.
Trustee Jacoby?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, then the next resolution is the 1-ton pickup number 705, and that one, the cost is not to exceed $58,585.
Move approval?
Second.
Thank you. Jerry?
Trustee Oppenheim?
Yes.
Trustee Benton?
Yes.
Trustee Berg?
Yes.
Trustee Jacoby?
Yes.
Trustee Metz-Childers?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Number 3 would be approving the purchase of the 1-ton pickup fleet number 706 for the cost of $57,985. Oh, no, excuse me. Yes, that's right.
That's right.
Move approval.
I'm looking at the trade-in. Yeah.
Trustee Benton?
Yes.
Trustee Berg?
Yes.
Trustee Jacoby?
Yes.
Trustee Metz-Childers?
Yes.
Trustee Oppenheim?
Yes. And then our final resolution is the purchase of a 1-ton pickup, fleet number 707, for $74,489.
Move approval.
Second?
Thank you. Jerry?
Trustee Berg?
Yes.
Trustee Jacoby?
Yes.
Trustee Metz-Childers?
Yes.
Trustee Oppenheim?
Yes.
Trustee Benton?
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right. Thank you.
Thank
There
you.
go, Bob. I would go get them tonight.
Right?
You never know, the price may go up.
Well, I'm just concerned that we get them.
Right.
Because we've been waiting and we've been patient, and that's great that they have finally come in. All right, it concludes our new business. We're up to items for discussion by the mayor and the board of trustees. I had a little report that I wanted to make tonight. I wanted to bring all of you up to date on the greenhouse gas working group. We have been meeting again since the fall. And as you know, we put together a climate action report with goals and initiatives to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions by 45% by 2030, and then get to carbon neutrality by 2050. And this is the report that we presented it was 2 years ago almost, and the board supported it. And so we've started working again. Andrew had a couple of, do you want to put the slides up to show them? There's the first one. We started off, when we started our meetings, we were working on our totals, our numbers from 2017. So one of the things that we did when we started meeting again this past fall was to see what our actual numbers were in terms of the greenhouse gases that we are generating for 2021. And we verified those numbers, and we've put together the composting program, and we've done a few other energy initiative things. So between 2017 numbers and 2021 numbers, we figure we have just a little over 6% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions, which is something. It's a start. We've still got another 39% to go in the next 6 years, but it's first steps. So as I said, we have been meeting and trying to figure out where we go next. Energy consumption, it's our biggest contributor to greenhouse gas emissions in the village. We have been promoting solar energy as an alternative to electricity and to dirtier forms of energy. And we've been doing some education, several initiatives. We have been sponsoring and helping provide solar tours with the Illinois Solar Education Association, showing Deerfield residents who've adopted solar panels on their roofs in their yards, and just so other people know what they can do. We have been promoting community solar. It's a solar subscription program. 788 subscribers in the village currently are registered with this. And we get our energy, I'm registered through this, from a solar farm in Mendota, Illinois. The program's still there, we're still pushing it, and it's really helping bring those totals down.
And saving people money. I've saved over $600 with that subscription program.
It's win-win-win. So as the program itself expands, it was small enough at the beginning. There was a waiting list. People couldn't get in, but people are, more interested in it now. So we are actively pushing people and proselytizing about this. As you know, on the board level, we have made some changes in our permitting fees for solar panels to try to make it easier for our residents to access that alternative for clean energy for their homes. So those things we've been doing. Right now, we are working toward a gold designation from a group called SoulSmart, and it's a no-cost assistant program, helps municipalities make it easier and more affordable for residents and businesses to install the solar energy system. So we're working with them as well to try to make it easier for residents to do this. We have been exploring working with an energy broker, which most of us didn't know existed before this, to reduce costs and to make green energy more available and more affordable for businesses. Actually, the majority of the electricity, the energy used, and the greenhouse gases that are produced in the village are by businesses, not by residences. And so if we don't reach out to the business community and find a way to have them also start using cleaner energy, we'll never get to our goal. So we're exploring some alternatives, ways to do this. We've sent out a survey to commercial businesses to get insights on what their sustainable practices are, if they are using energy brokers, if there was the availability for them to use an energy broker to buy clean energy, if they would do that, if we can help facilitate that. And we think that's going to help us bring down our numbers. We are discussing possibly amending our current electrical aggregation contract to make it even more renewable. So we're always looking to push that envelope to see how much more renewable energy that we can get. Recently, we were awarded an EPA Green Power Partnership Certificate for sourcing 29% of our energy from clean sources through our electric aggregation program. So we're doing pretty well. It's first steps. It's an enormous job, and it's going to take a village, everybody, to band together, and figure out every way we can do this. But we are meeting, and we are making some plans and investigating and trying to spread this to the business community as well as to residents. We're doing everything we can, as you know, for reducing our use of energy and certainly greenhouse gas emissions. The village, through our facilities, but we also need to spread this and have everybody come on board. So that's what we're doing. We've been meeting monthly or every 6 weeks or so, and we'll come back, and report back to you.
And I want to thank the DBR Chamber of Commerce is helping us with that survey in that linkage partnership with our business community. So they're very active and on the task force, but also appreciate their partnership and their contact with their members.
Absolutely. It's critical. We need it. So that's all from me. Kent, did you have anything you wanted to share?
I do not.
Okay. Anybody else? All right. Our next meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, February 20th. Hopefully we'll all be here. At this point, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
Otherwise, we stay here all night. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everybody.